Hi, I'm Diane Dealey-Neal with the Forestry Challenge. Today we're going to be demonstrating data collection in a plot. We will be doing most of the things that you'll be doing out in the field. There may be some things we'll add at your event. There may be some things we take away depending on the situation. But we're going to demonstrate the basic steps to collecting data in a plot. Each team will be assigned one or more plots, typically one plot, to measure. You'll be given instructions on how to find your plot, and your team, with the help of a forester or someone who's good at doing field work, will work with you to collect the data. So our team today is Chris and Miriam and myself. Miriam and I will be generating the data, and Chris is going to be our recorder. So one thing to keep in mind, there should be one person and one person only collecting and writing down that information. Others will collect, one will write down. Sometimes tablets will be used in most cases. We also will be using paper. So when those numbers are generated and the numbers called out, the recorder will repeat the number to make sure that the number is heard correctly. Once you've located your plot center, one of your team members will stand at plot center with the zero end of the tape. The first step is to establish the plot boundary. This is a fixed radius plot. Most of the time we're going to use a 1/10 acre plot. The radius is 37.2 feet. So what you'll need to do is stretch the tape out and measure around to make sure that you've got all the trees in your plot that you're going to be recording information about. Obviously, these ones that are nearby are in, but there's some behind us that we're not sure about, so we're going to go out and measure and see if the trees are inside or outside the plot. So we've stretched the tape out from plot center over to this tree to see if it's in or out of our plot. Now remember, the number for a 10th acre plot is 37.2 feet. This tree, and we're measuring from the center, not from the front or the back, it's at 35. So this tree, being that this is the plot boundary, this tree is in our plot. Now that we've figured out how many trees are in the plot, it's time to measure them. So I'm measuring diameter breast height, or DBH, and I'm going to call out the number. The number is 23.4 inches.
23.4 inches.
Okay, got it. The other thing we're going to do, two other things for this tree. We're going to identify it, and we're going to say whether it's live or dead. Obviously, we've got foliage here. This tree is alive, and this is an incense cedar. So we have one incense cedar, and you got the diameter.
All right, one incense cedar. And it is alive.
You'll encounter situations where trees are fused together like these trees. The rule to remember is if they're separated at DBH, you'll count them as two trees and measure each diameter separately. And certainly this meets the test, diameter breast height, two bowls, two trees. Here's the opposite situation where you have one bowl that splits up high. And because that split is above DBH, this counts as one tree. We've got all the trees counted and the diameters, species, everything done. We move on to step 2, which is basal area. You'll be trained on how to do this when you get to the event, the morning before you go out to collect data. So this is a variable plot radius. That means any tree in or out of the plot can be measured as in or out. I've swung my angle gauge and I've got the number 4. So Chris, 4 trees in for our basal area.
4 trees in for basal area.
Okay, thank you. Now that we know we have 4 trees in, we can do the math. So 4 trees times 40 basal area factor is 160 square feet per acre. That is the basal area. So now we're moving on to step 3, which is our densitometer and our canopy cover reading. So I'm using the compass. I did a random bearing. I spun the compass, and the direction is this direction. So we've got our tape. We're going to take one reading at the plot center, but Miriam's showing how she's at 10 feet. She's going to have Chris direct her, and she's going to take a reading with the densitometer.
Keep going, and there it is. In or out, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, we do have canopy cover.
All right, we'll be doing that for 10, 20, and 30 feet on 3 equal radiants from plot center. That way you'll have 10 data points. At each of the points where you get a densitometer reading, you'll also be doing a duff layer reading. So you'll go to your 10, 20, or 30 mark, dig down through the organic layer to the inorganic layer, and use your ruler to measure depth. The choices you'll have will be in half-inch increments. I would say this is probably 1/2 inch. Is the seedling count. Now the plot is a smaller plot. It's a 100th acre plot. It is 11.8 feet in diameter. Miriam's got the tape. And so Chris is at plot center. He's going to record. The tape is going to swing in an arc, and we're going to count every seedling. So some of the seedlings are obvious, like this one here. This is a nice, easy to see seedling, but we've got to be very careful that we don't miss some of the tiny, tiny seedlings that are this size. It becomes very challenging, but that's why we use a 100th acre plot instead of a 10th acre plot. So we're going to start moving the tape. We've got one here. Chris, go ahead and record.
There's one.
And we'll move around the circle, looking very carefully and trying to get any others. Here's one here. That will be two.
Two.
And so on until we cover our entire circle and we have a seedling count. Step 5 is to use an increment borer to assess tree growth. Now, it asks for the most dominant tree in the plot. In this case, this is the largest tree in our plot, but it is not the most dominant because it's sharing space in its canopy with its neighbor tree. What we're looking for is a tree that's all alone and has a full canopy. And that one over there, not only is it a large dominant tree, but it does have no neighbors close by, so its canopy is full. That would be our dominant tree, and that's where we're going to take our sample. Once you've extracted your core, you're going to count the rings and mark. I use a pen to mark every 10 years. So I'm counting up. I'm just going to say this is 10. You'll count more carefully, and that this is 20. So now that you have your 20, you're going to take the ruler and you're going to measure to the nearest 10th inch. And that is 2.6, Chris.
2.6.
To round out our data collection, you're often asked a series of questions. On this case, there's 3 questions. Chris is going to read them to me one by one.
Is there mechanical damage to any of the trees in the plot?
Okay, so we look around. You can do a separate sweep through the plot, or you can do that as you're doing your diameters if you're looking ahead. What we're looking for is damage from logging or equipment, trees falling against each other. And we did do a look around, and in this case, the answer is no. So,
no.
Okay, next question.
Percent understory vegetation cover.
Okay, so that is important with any fire-related topic. We're going to do a quick scan around here. Our choices are 0, 25, 50, 75, or 100. We're in the lower end, so we're going to call this 25. Even the low ground cover does count. Okay, so 25, Chris. Last question.
Were conifer limbs pruned up to 8 feet?
Okay, so we're looking around to see if conifer limbs were pruned. Depending on the situation, that may or may not be an issue. In generally, I would say the answer is yes. There are a few trees with limbs that are a little bit lower, but in general, yes, I would say the answer is yes, they're pruned.
Yes, they're pruned.
Okay, I think that's about it. At this point, you're going to have the person helping you with data collection sign your data collection sheet saying that you did collect all the data, that the information is complete, and it's legible. The other last step is that you're going to pull the pin flag and the flagging, any flagging that's around your plot that we put out for you, you're going to collect that and bring it in with you. You'll be turning in all of your data collection sheets. We'll collect that data, we'll analyze it and get into a data set. We'll return that to you in the evening, and you'll be able to use that for your focus topic.